Mitch Lawrence. He's going to join us now, and he says the only guy they can add to close the gap, it's find another LeBron James. And I don't know that that's going to happen, Mitch. The Cavs need to make adjustments, as you wrote about, to make this a fair fight. The only way to do it is to clone LeBron, and it looks like the gap between these two teams is bigger than we thought.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, the first two games, wow. I mean, Cleveland has been brutal, and Golden State has been terrific. And I don't know how much is going to change when the series shifts to Cleveland, when you got Durant and Curry playing at such a high level. And, you know, it's all on the line here for Durant. This whole finals is like a referendum on his move for a lot of people, not the Golden State fans. They love it. They don't care what he did. But you have that. And then, you know, Curry hadn't done well in the last couple of finals he had played in. And both of these guys are going for about combined 65, 66 points, 17, 18 assists per game. It's like LeBron is outmanned. He's outstarred here. So I don't know if things are going to change, but I'm glad to know you guys are weathering the elements very well and complaining about it, too. What a surprise.
We certainly are, Mitch. You know, the first two games last year weren't close either, so why do we feel so different? I guess Durant, right?
Well, we don't have Harrison Barnes to kick around anymore, right? I mean, there's a big difference between Harrison Barnes and Durant. You saw it in the first game. When they go to Durant, he can basically score anywhere. You know, Barnes was a limited guy. He was, their fourth option. You replaced the fourth option. He would have some moments, but he was basically, you know, ineffective or didn't have much of an impact in a lot of ways. And you replaced him with Kevin Durant, who can get to the line. He can score from all over the court. He's a handful for LeBron defensively, as you saw last night. He's scoring against LeBron almost at will. And the other end, he had 5 blocks last night, Kevin Durant. I've never seen him have a bigger game on the defensive end. He is their rim protector. Harrison Barnes had 4 blocks in 24 playoff games last year. Kevin Durant had 5 blocks in 1 game last night.
Yeah, Mitch, it seems that Durant is out to he's on a mission. I mean, there's a lot of people who took shots at him. I mean, for making the decision that he did, right? And that's understandable. But he's out there to say, look, I'm showing you guys why this team, Golden State, came and wanted me too. I was the difference maker.
That's true. They wanted him because he gave them a lot of things that they didn't have. Even though they had been to 2 straight finals and won a finals in 15, their downfall last year, besides the Draymond Green thing and losing Bogut, was, you know, Game 7, if you go back to last year's Game 7, they got outscored in the fourth quarter 18-13 when they lost that game, and they had nothing offensively. You know, they were terrible from the field. Curry was 1 of 6 overall. They couldn't get to the foul line, and they saw Durant as a guy who could take a lot of the pressure off of Curry and be able to do what they needed to do. You got to, you know, it's not just getting to the line to score points. It's also to slow the other team down from runouts and stuff. And so, yeah, he gave them a lot, but you got to remember, too, they presented him with the opportunity to win titles, multiple. And, you know, the thing now about Durant is we know he's a great scorer. He's a fourth-time scoring champ. What he has to start worrying about at his age, he's 28, 29 years old, is his legacy. And, as you know, the one thing Golden State told him was, you know what, you got to work on your legacy. We're going to be able to present you with more championship opportunities here than you'll have in Oklahoma City. So there were a lot of things that both parties were able to give to the other, and it was a great fit for him. But we all know from a competitive standpoint, a lot of us didn't like to see the fact that he left Oklahoma City, left Russell Westbrook. This was not not a LeBron James situation when he left Cleveland. He never had a Russell Westbrook there. He didn't go to a ready-made championship team that had already won a title. So the big difference is there. But, yeah, Durant is out to prove to people that he can win titles, albeit with a Steph Curry and other guys who have won a title. And that's very important moving forward because now he's looking at, you know, where do I stack up in the history of this league? He has to start winning rings.
No doubt. And he most likely, if it goes the way he's been playing, he's going to win the MVP of the series too. And that's something that certainly put that on the marquee. Mitch, last year it was 2-0, and Cleveland won Game 3, and then they ended up going on. Can they do something? Is there anything that they can make an adjustment in this series, or, again, does it go back to Durant?
Well, I think it's a little – this year's a lot different, obviously. They're going to apparently go to Shumpert maybe as a starter over J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith's been a total mess here. Whether he's not making shots or he's screwing up defensively, I don't know what his plus-minus rating is. I know he's deep into the minuses here, so you could see that. they're also going to, we heard they were going to be more physical, and we heard maybe they were going to try to slow it down for Game 2. That was still a runaway freight train that they were trying to catch and play with. So I don't know if they're able to do that. We'll see. Obviously, the whole season rides on this game, because if they go down 3-0, it's going to be a sweep. And that's the thing you have to remember, too. Golden State's not going to let up here. Golden State won the 73 last year. They're up to 3-1, and then everything, all the moves they made backfired. Draymond Green retaliating against LeBron. Bogut gets hurt. The guys who are still on the team, the core guys, are not going to take the foot off the pedal here. They remember how, like Klay Thompson said, you know what, this season was a bust, talking about last year when they couldn't close the deal on 73. Now they have a chance to go 16-0. We all know the Lakers went 15-1 back in, 2001 against the Sixers. That's about the best record anybody's ever had in a playoff, when you had to win 15 games. Golden State can now go 16-0. I think they see that. That's been something that's been driving them, too, very quietly. They want to be able to separate themselves. They couldn't do it last year. They couldn't make that 73 win stand up with a title. This 16-0 for them is a big deal.
Mitch, do you get a sense that the Cavs seem defeated? I mean, most teams would come back home and say, listen, you have to beat us on our home court. But do the Cavs already kind of look like slumped shoulders or resigned to the fact that they just aren't good enough?
You know what? Part of me says you're right. There were some of the comments last night from the players which kind of suggested that. And that's weird, because this is a team that, of course, rolled through the East, won 12 out of 13 games, and had the highest offensive rating in pro basketball since like 1977 or 78, something ridiculous in the last 40 years. And their offensive rating went from over 120 down to like a Sixer level, like 90 or 88, 89 in Game 1, and it's even worse now. Look, we criticize teams in the East for not having belief when they play Cleveland in the playoffs. We saw that in Toronto. I think Boston suffered from some of that. You see what you're up against. You see that you can't, look, when Golden State rolls at you with Kevin Durant and Curry are playing a Finals MVP or MVP levels, and all of a sudden Klay Thompson breaks out of his shooting slump, I'm sure within that organization they're buckling. They're probably saying to themselves, what do we have to do now to contend with this team where they've got all these guys who are playing tremendous basketball at this time? They're driven. They're hungrier. They're hungrier probably than Cleveland is at this point because of what happened last year. They're hungrier because of the Durant factor. He wants to start winning titles. This is an uphill battle. They might know that right now.
Mitch Lawrence, Sirius XM NBA Radio, Forbes.com, as he's covering this series with a lot of great stuff. Check him out. And, of course, here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, he's at Mitch_Lawrence. Yeah, Pete's question, you're watching the game last night. They have the lead. They're playing. They're right there. And then just bombs away. And it was like timeout Cleveland. And you saw them walking off the floor like, what are we supposed to do? I mean, we went shot for shot with them. We were hanging in there. And they I think they're resigned to the fact that they don't have the firepower. And I think they thought coming into the series maybe they could slow them down. But there's no slowing this train down right now.
Well, right now there isn't, but I'll tell you what, Steve Kerr talked about it last night. It was great to see him on the bench back, by the way. First game since April 19th, a month and a half with that back. And, Mike Brown did a great job winning, 11 straight games, and they never missed a beat. But the thing I look at if I'm Cleveland is, look, you still haven't played nearly your A game with guys like, Love's had some moments, but Kyrie hasn't. I think LeBron last night did a tremendous job in the first half. Why he took the foot off the gas and why he started to defer and why he didn't shoot as much as he did in the first half and he's the one guy who puts pressure on that defense better than anybody else, as you know. He levels that playing field. I got to think coming out Wednesday, both he and Kyrie Irving will at least try to give you their A games. I would be shocked if there was anything differently, and maybe that's the way they get a win here. But you're right. There is got to be some doubt in their minds because of what's been happening in the last couple of games, especially the way Durant can give them a backline defender. Look, when they lost, they had to move Bogut to bring in Durant, and we all thought, they really don't have any rim protection, especially with Pachulia. But I'm telling you, last night Kevin Durant was a monster back there. I'd never seen him play a defensive game like that. He's gotten better and better, but we know him as a scorer. We know him as a hard matchup at the other end. But last night, man, I mean, he was just defensively, he was brilliant.
So, Mitch, Mike and I were talking, obviously, before you came on about last night's game and how the series is going. And one of the things Mike brought up, we had both thought maybe Warriors in 5. That was something we were thinking before the series began. Boy, if it's a sweep and it's 4-0 and they're right on out of there, and with all the tools and weapons the Warriors have, is that bad for the NBA moving forward? Is that the optic the NBA wants moving forward?
And one of the things, Mitch,
nobody has a chance.
One of the things we talked about was when Durant signed, the hype began July 7th when he signed of this matchup, the 3P. What do you have to look forward going into next season if this is a sweep? I mean, the gap is so far away if that's the ending of this series.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't going to be any moves this summer by any of these teams which are going to make a difference in terms of, what's Boston going to do. Now, San Antonio's rumored to be going after Chris Paul. I've heard from the get-go that Chris Paul is going to take the $200+ million from the Clippers and stay there. The only thing I'll say is, I was thinking about this today. I referenced this in my column. I haven't seen a duo like this in the finals since Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. And I'm not equating the two. I'm just saying this is that type of duo which you could see them going back to, 3-4 finals. And still, there was competition against Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. Everything was not a cakewalk for them. Now, who that is, what teams can do that, that's a great question. No, I don't think it is great for the league. I think they like the fact there is a super team because that brings people and eyeballs to the set. And you saw that with the ratings last night. Because people are attracted, obviously. I mean, we're talking about a finals here with, several guys who have been MVPs and probably the 3 top players in the game, even without Harden or Westbrook. But I think in terms of the gap between, I thought there was a gap between Golden State, Cleveland, and the rest. Now there's a definite gap between Golden State and Cleveland, and then Cleveland and the rest. So I don't know how it's good for the league. And you know what? I look at the draft, and I'm just hoping that some of these young guys who are coming in, whether it's Fultz or Lonzo Ball or Josh Jackson, who could end up in Philly, maybe these guys all of a sudden can come in and start dominating. You haven't heard that. I'm not saying they will. That's an outside shot. But when you look at the landscape, I'm also wondering, if Blake Griffin leaves, the Clippers, or Gordon Hayward leaves to go to Boston, does that really close the gap on anybody? And does it close the gap I'm talking about on Golden State? I don't see it.
Yeah, Mitch Lawrence with it. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. To me, there's only – I know we had a little disagreement on this in terms of there's only 3 players in the league that have that. Durant, LeBron, and Kawhi, to me, are the 3 guys that if they change teams, that team is automatically back in the mix. That means there is no player movement that can shift something this offseason. So where is the hype of next season going to really come from? I think the league is going to be very in trouble in that aspect. Now, you mentioned 20 million people or 19.5 million watched the game last night, and you're right. The leagues do well, Mitch, right, when they have a villain, right?
Yes.
When they have a villain.
Oh, yeah.
But you mentioned the Shaq and Kobe, and I was talking about this with a buddy of mine who's a Knicks fan, and this was like the Knicks and all the teams in the East, when they were growing up, you could build your team, you could have a championship-level team, but you weren't getting past Jordan, and that's kind of how it feels right now, just on the next level, is you might have your best team, but you're not getting past Golden State.
Well, and then if you're in the East, you're still not getting past LeBron. I don't care if LeBron gets swept here. That doesn't mean the rest of the East is gained on LeBron.
Right.
That just means LeBron's got a matchup problem, like I wrote about today, where he can't deal with guys in Golden State. But I mean, the East. We've all been waiting for the East to come around, to have some team step up. There's a lot of talk about Philly in that. Their 2 best players have to show they can stay on. First of all, Ben Simmons has to get on the court, and then Embiid has to prove he can stay on the court for more than 31 games. We'll see who they add in the draft. There's certainly Brian Colangelo is in a very good position to add a big-time player at 3. But in terms of what's going to happen next year and how the ramifications of what Boston's going to do, I don't know how much that's really going to close the gap with Cleveland. The interesting thing will be also what LeBron decides to do with the Cavaliers in concert with David Griffin and everybody else there if they do get swept, to try to close the gap, because they're going to look at it as a situation, especially LeBron. LeBron is still after titles here. The idea is not getting swept now. The idea is to add to the ring collection. So I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what his thinking is, whether they're going to start thinking about moving Kevin Love again, that he always seems to be a fall guy, a potential fall guy, or what they're going to do. But they can't add, they can revamp their bench maybe, but I can't see, they're not going to do anything, obviously, with Kyrie Irving. J.R. Smith, Shumpert, guys like that, what you're going to get for them in a possible trade, who knows? So Cleveland's going to have a lot of work to do if this ends in the sweep.
Do you feel that way, though, Mitch? You're around the Knicks a lot, and do you feel like when they were in their heyday, they just couldn't get by? Do you feel the league is similar to that right now, where the league just feels like there's a couple of teams that they're not getting? But that's the history of the NBA, seemingly, right? That there's a couple power teams, and you don't get through them.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that happened in Los Angeles, and I didn't point this out in my column because it's old news and everybody knows it, is they could have had even more success, except that the two stars were at odds. Kobe and Shaq had a hard time coexisting. I mean, that's the only reason that brought that down prematurely. And the fact that the Lakers didn't want to pay Shaquille O'Neal, he was getting, he wasn't over the hill by any stretch, but he was a guy who was demanding top dollar. And the owner, Dr. Jerry Buss, decided, you know what, we're going to give the top dollar now to Kobe Bryant, and that's why they got rid of Shaq. But that, those guys were at war. They couldn't coexist. Shaquille was never going to be the number 2 guy to Kobe, and that's the reason that they brought that down. And, they had a great run. I mean, they got the 4 finals in 5 years, and it looked like they would have had more. Okay, Phil Jackson didn't want to be there, whatever, but that's the only reason that really came apart before its time. And now both guys actually look back, Kobe and Shaq, and regret it. Of course they do, because they could have had, more championships, and they could have, put themselves in in terms of history, that team could have been judged even greater if they had stayed together. So, yeah, I mean, there is this problem that now, let me tell you something about here in New York. I mean, they're not even at a level yet where they're looking at competing. They're trying to just build something here. Phil Jackson is trying to build a team. He's not doing a very good job at it. As a matter of fact, he's pretty bad at it. So they're not even looking at Cleveland right now. They're looking at what do we need to do just to get a sniff of the playoffs, because they've been awful the last couple of years.
Yeah, and Mitch, what's unique, you just mentioned the Shaq-Kobe dynamic, that thing crumbled because they couldn't coexist. This uniqueness is these 4 guys like each other.
Well, it goes back to the recruiting of Durant. Well, first of all, you got to remember, Draymond Green was doing a lot of back-channel recruiting, which is not illegal, but he was spending a lot of time apparently texting Kevin Durant throughout the season, even leading up to the recruitment, the official recruitment. And so they had that going for him, Golden State. Plus, as you know, when it came time to go out to the Hamptons, where Kevin Durant was meeting with all the teams after he met at home with Oklahoma City, he went out to the Hamptons, and, they brought out, besides the club executives and Steve Kerr, you had, Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Klay Thompson and Andre Iguodala. Now they're known with Durant as the Hamptons 5. And those guys came out there and they recruited him actively. They wanted him on the team. And Durant now is already, of the mindset of, I'm going to take less money than I'm due. He's due a lot of money. He's due north of $200 million, but he's going to put that off for a couple of years so that he can keep Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston there. So, yeah, it's a much different situation than Kobe and Shaq. These guys like each other, and they wanted to succeed for a long time, to have a long run here, get a few championships, and see where they end up in history.
What's crazy, though, Mitch, is when LeBron went to Miami, it was still kind of like, it's Dwayne Wade's team. This already feels like Durant is saying, guess what, guys, this is my team.
Well, it is in a lot of ways. I mean, they haven't had great challenges in the playoffs. I mean, they are 14-0, right? But in a couple of spots where they did have some rough road, and it was limited in a game against Utah, and a game, obviously, game 1 against San Antonio. They rode Durant. Mike Brown pushed the right buttons. They leaned on Durant. They got him the ball. He was the guy, the alpha of this attack. It wasn't Curry. Now the problem for Cleveland, though, is these guys now. I mean, you see the way Curry knows he's got a lot to do here in the finals, too. There's been, we all talk about it, how Curry basically has not played like anything resembling an MVP in 2 finals, and now he is. So he had that hanging over his head. And then we all know we've already gone into the whole Durant thing, what it means for him to finally, be on the precipice of his first title. and what it's going to mean for him for his legacy. So that's quite a lot for LeBron James here, having to go against. It's too much, looks like, right?
Sure does. This is, unfortunately, it's been a complete mismatch. Game number 3, Friday night. Mitch, I know on Sirius XM over the weekend, you guys got a chance to talk to Sixers head coach Brett Brown about the draft and what he's looking for. So if you can give our listeners some things that stood out to you in talking to Coach Brown, I'm sure he's a very upbeat guy about where his team is heading.
Oh, man, yeah. I mean, they got, now they've got, if Embiid can play and they're counting on him to, they're looking at a situation where, now he didn't, tell us they're going to take Josh Jackson or Tatum or whoever, but obviously they've got plenty of players to choose from for the needs that they have. Now, the interesting thing I asked them about, will Ben Simmons and Embiid play this summer? And he said they don't want Simmons running around Las Vegas, which you could take one of several ways, but he's not going to play. And he kind of forecast both guys, trying to be ready for the opening of camp, which is great news for the Sixers. But yeah, I mean, they've got a lot. Workouts are going to start. They've done some interviewing. Look, they're in a great situation. But they have to make when you draft as high as they are at 3, you can't miss on this one. You got to hit it. You got to hit it big for them. Got to be a perimeter player, whether it's Josh Jackson. And that player should be, what are you looking for? I mean, you're not thinking you're going to get another Kawhi Leonard, who was at 15 and a future MVP. You're not maybe you're not going to get a future MVP, but can you look for an all-star type? Can Josh Jackson be that player? People love him competition-wise. His shooting, a little suspect. People are a little down on that, but everything else about his game suggests he could be a future all-star. So maybe that's the way they go. But I think Brett Brown feels like, we're going to start to turn a big corner here as long as these other guys can stay healthy, and we had a pick, and you know what? It's not that in the East, it's not that hard to be a playoff team.
We'll see. The draft coming up June 22nd. Mitch Lawrence, longtime NBA columnist, now a host on Sirius XM NBA Radio, Forbes.com. Check him out on Twitter at Mitch_Lawrence for his coverage and opinions on the NBA Finals. Always fun, Mitch. We'll do it again soon.
Okay, fellas, stay dry. Talk to you later.